You know, the story of our modern world, the one we all live in, is really the story of an incredible, almost unbelievable explosion in human well-being. It's a story about a great escape from thousands of years of poverty, all driven by this powerful force we call economic growth. So let's dive in and figure out how it all happened.
Let's start with a number, 2,500. What is that? Well, back in the early 1600s, that's how many food calories an average worker in Western Europe could afford to get per day. It's just enough to survive, right? Enough to get through a day of really hard labor and then, well, do it all over again the next day.
And here's the truly mind-boggling part. For century after century, that was it. That was life. Whether you lived in the Roman Empire or the Middle Ages, your standard of living was probably no different from your great-great-great-grandparents'. Progress was just stuck.
Okay, now, let's fast forward to today. A low-skilled worker in a wealthy country can afford to buy 2.4 times million calories a day. No, that's not a typo. The sheer scale of that change is almost impossible to wrap your head around. It's a complete revolution in what it means to be human.
So, what on earth happened? What was the spark? What unlocked this unbelievable explosion in prosperity that totally reshaped our planet in just a couple of hundred years? That is the big mystery we're here to unravel.
All right, first things first. We have to understand that this kind of rapid growth, it isn't normal. Historically speaking, it's a modern miracle, a very, very recent event in the grand scheme of human history. Just look at this timeline. For thousands of years, the story was exactly the same. That long, flat line shows that for pretty much 2 millennia, income per person barely moved. It was stagnant. But then, right around the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution hits, and something new happens. The line starts to curve up, and then, whoosh, it shoots almost straight up. That is the takeoff.
So what's the engine driving that insane vertical spike? Well, in one word, it's productivity. Or, to be a little more specific, labor productivity.
So what is labor productivity? It's really just a way of measuring how efficiently we work. It's the value we can create in a given amount of time, say in 1 hour. To put it really simply, the more you can produce in an hour, the richer your society is going to get.
Let's make this super simple. Imagine 2 bakers. Worker A can make 10 loaves of bread in 1 hour. Worker B, in that same hour, can only make 2. Well, worker A is 5 times more productive. They're creating way more value in the exact same amount of time.
And this is the absolute key takeaway. When you zoom out and look at the big picture, a nation's ability to improve its standard of living over time depends almost entirely on its ability to raise its productivity. It is the master key to prosperity, period.
Okay, so if productivity is the engine, what's the fuel? Well, economists have basically boiled it down to a recipe with 3 essential ingredients.
So the recipe for growth starts with something called human capital. That's just the skills and education of the workforce. Next up is physical capital. Think of this as the tools, the factories, the roads we use. And the final crucial ingredient is technology, all the new inventions and better processes that make everything more efficient.
And we can actually see this in action. Take human capital. In 1970, only about half of American adults even had a high school diploma. But by the early 2000s, that number jumped to over 80%. That's a process called capital deepening, and it just means the average worker became way more skilled and capable than before.
And the impact of building up this human capital, especially when it comes to educating girls, is just profound. It echoes across generations. This data shows that just 1 extra year of school for women leads to healthier families and better educated kids. It's an investment that pays these incredible dividends for the whole society.
And you know what? The exact same thing happened with our tools. The value of the physical capital, all the equipment and infrastructure available to the average U.S. worker, has nearly tripled since the 1950s. Better tools make for a more productive worker. It's really that simple.
And then there's technology. Economists sometimes call it the joker in the deck. Why? Because it's the wild card. It's not just about flashy inventions like a new smartphone. It's also about new processes, like the assembly line, or totally new ways of organizing work that just amplify the power of all our human and physical capital. So, now that we have the recipe for growth, it brings up a huge question. Can poorer countries use it to catch up? Are we seeing a great global convergence?
Now, this idea has a name, economic convergence, and the theory is pretty simple. It says that poor countries have the potential to grow much, much faster than wealthy ones, which allows them to start closing that income gap over time.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. We are seeing it happen right now. Just look at the Fast Growth Club. Countries like China and India have been posting these mind-blowing growth numbers for decades. Now compare that to the Slow Growth Club,
the mature, high-income economies like Japan and France, where growth is much more modest. The catch-up is real.
So why does this happen? Well, low-income countries get to use what some call the advantages of backwardness. Think about it. It's a lot easier to adopt existing technologies, like cell phones or the internet, than it is to invent them from scratch. Meanwhile, high-income countries, they have to keep pushing the envelope, constantly inventing brand new technology at the cutting edge just to keep growing.
And the stakes here, they just couldn't be higher. As the Nobel laureate Robert Lucas Jr. once put it, when you really start to think about what this means for human welfare, for lifting billions of people out of poverty, it's just staggering. It's hard to think about anything else.
But, and this is a really big but, we have to be realistic. Convergence is a marathon, not a sprint. Even with an amazing 7% growth rate year after year, it would still take a poor country 30 years just to go from being 10 times poorer than a rich country to only 2.4 times poorer. The gap is massive, and closing it is going to take generations.
And that brings us to our final question. The great escape from poverty that began 2 centuries ago has created a world of wealth that was once unimaginable. But the great challenge of our time is whether that prosperity can be shared and whether this great escape can become a story not just for some of us, but for all of humanity.